What's up, everybody? It's Grim from GTS Wrestling, and welcome to the best ever Joe Cronin's Monetize This World Heavyweight Champion, the video games collector, the game hunter, Casey is raw. And if you're not down with that, we got 3 words for you. Eat it, yeah!
What up, guys? This is Casey is Raw again, and today we're going to talk about wrestling. And today we will be talking about the 9 Lives of Vince McMahon that was on Vice. And you can watch it on Vice TV on their website, and you can get several 30-minute passes for free. Or if you have like a TV service, you could use your setup as TV, let's say Dish or DirecTV or whatever cable you got, and if you know your username and password, you can watch that for free. But it was a real good show. They heavily used the Dark Side of the Ring footage. They took a lot of it from that, and there's a few things that I agree with Dave Meltzer when I was watching his watching a podcast that he was on, and he was commentating about it. And there's certain things I wouldn't put on there, like they talked about the Montreal screw job. Like, yeah, that's a big thing, but is that really a scandal? I mean, Bret Hart was about to leave the company, so if you ask me, that's not a scandal. They also talked about, they use Eddie Guerrero's death in a bad way when Randy Orton was telling Rey Mysterio that Eddie's not in heaven, he's in hell. And that was on there. I'm like, what? Okay, it's a way for Randy Orton to get some heat. So, I don't count that. There's a few others, but I know they started all the way where they talk about he was being abused and molested by his mom. Then he had a couple stepfathers. And then he eventually tried to be with his dad, Vince McMahon Sr. Well, he also went to, I think his stepfather, one of his stepfathers, sent him to military school, where allegedly, if you asked him, he was the first person to be court-martialed from that school. I couldn't. I'm not going to take Vince McMahon's word for it. I'm sorry. There are several people in the wrestling business that I'm not going to take their word for them, and Vince is one of them. Vince, Hulk Hogan, I would say Vince Russo, and Bischoff. Those four people, I'm not going to take their words for anything. They're well known as liars. So, then they talked about how Vince McMahon started his little bit promotion where, it was Muhammad Ali versus Antonio Inoki. Like a boxer versus a wrestler. And then they did the Evil Knievel deal where he lost $250,000 to Evil Knievel for a failed stunt and caused both Vince and Linda to go bankrupt. And then they eventually got his father agreed to bring him into the business and finally selling him the business. During the story, they were saying that a bunch of the territories people got together and they talked to Vince Sr. so they can talk to Vince Jr. And Vince Sr. was talking to Jr. saying, you need to dial it back. And then I guess Vince Jr. convinced Vince Sr. where he's like, you know what, you're right. Fuck him. So I was like, that's funny. I don't know how accurate that is, especially when it's two people. One's dead, and probably you can't get a comment about that. Especially, they tell you at the beginning of the show that Vince McMahon declined to be part of this. And it is a hit piece about Vince McMahon. They pretty much list a bunch of scandals he was part of. Like, honestly, they talked about the scandal of, was it Rita Chatterton, who was the first female referee for the WWF, and that he allegedly forced her to give him oral sex. And right after that, pretty much fired her. And then they go past that. They kind of glossed over about the sex scandal with Pat Patterson and, was it Terry Garvin and the other dude? Trying to think whoever is some black guy. I'm not exactly who's his name. I was about to say Mel someone else. It was Mel something. I can't think of the guy's name. But he was part of it, and they kind of glossed over it. All they said was someone in the back had a footage, a thing about toes, a fetish about toes. I'm like, that sounds like the Ring Boy scandal. And the only person who came out of that it was Pat Patterson, Terry Garvin, and that other dude I can't remember. They were all suspended or fired. They eventually brought back Pat Patterson, even though there was a lot of things pointing at him. And then they talked about Jimmy Snuka situation back in, I think, was it 83? Yeah, 83, 84. It was right around that time frame when he murdered his girlfriend, allegedly. But it's most likely he did. He was found liable in a wrongful death lawsuit. So he pretty much did it. And then they talked about it a little bit, and they started showing footage from Dark Side of the Ring. It was kind of like their lazy way. They're like, they not only that, they burned a lot of bridges from Vice, from Dark Side of the Ring, from season 3, especially from Plane Ride from Hell. That did a lot of damage and burned a lot of bridges with wrestlers. So, and they're trying to build that bridge back with the Tales of the Territory, but now they blew it right back up with the Vince McMahon hit piece. So, after that, they had the. Let's see, I know. Gosh, what else is there? I know they talked about Owen Hart. No, they talked about eventually about Bret Hart's situation with the Montreal Screwjob. They talked about that, even though scandal kind of, but he was leaving the territory, like I said before. And then they brought up the whole thing about Owen Hart's death as a scandal. That was an incident. I mean, is Vince partially to blame? Yeah. He allowed it to be cheap. And, but it was more of the people who was doing the harness rigging is mostly at fault. They were experimenting with something they shouldn't have done. Like, if you ask me, like, really tall height and harness and quick release, I would say no. I don't care. I'd be like, no. Owen Hart should have said no to that. Alright, I remember now, they talked about, the Crispin Wall situation, where, they pretty much were, I don't think they were blaming Vince. It was Chris Benoit's fault why he had that. Because he was taking chair shots to the head. He was doing the diving headbutt. He was doing headbutts. So he was, if you ask me, that was Chris Benoit himself's fault for that one. I don't blame Vince McMahon for that. Oh yeah, they used the Plane Ride from Hell. That was another Dark Side of the Ring thing they used. They glossed over a little bit, but scandal. Yeah, they got sued, but it's a big thing. But I'd rather do more like the sex scandal, the steroid scandal, what's going on more recently. Like several versions of the sex scandals, I'm meaning. And I'm looking at this website, and they brought up better points to bring up. Like, let me tell you one of these. They also talked about Plane Ride from Hell. They brought up how JBL is backstage bullying, and that's a big one. The bullying behind it. And then, the race behind where there's a lot of racist stuff in the backstage. Let's see what else. Oh, firing Dawn Marie when she was pregnant. And these ones I just bring up, the last few, was not on the show. But I think firing Dawn Marie while she's pregnant, that was a bad one. Yeah, countless drug problems. I agree with that. They also put on here how they lost $350 million in a single day. But that's when the stock went down the toilet. Oh, I just read about how Jimmy Snuka's murder trial. And they talked a little bit how Vince went in and talked to the police, had a briefcase, and then, the briefcase wasn't there. But they brought up another one about the WWE getting sued, a class action lawsuit from a bunch of former wrestlers for the health care issue. That's a big one. And the whole thing with Sports Illustrated, uh, telling the public about how they were on a signature in a steroids ring. Oh, here's a big one. This has definitely got to be on Dark Side of the Ring. Is the Stone Cold Steve Austin domestic issues. And I thought this would definitely put a black eye on the WWE and Stone Cold when after he left the WWE and he was having marriage problems, and then he beat Deborah, and WWE put a gag order on her. So that was a good one right there that they skipped over. And they talked about how Vince went around and stole all the talent, shutting everyone down. Honestly, they talked about the steroid, the U.S. government versus Vince McMahon, the steroid trial. They're like, oh, he's wearing the neck brace, saying he was using that to get sympathy on him. But that was a big coup for Vince. Oh yeah, they also brought up Brian Pillman with the gun angle on Monday Night Raw, where it looked like he was about to shoot Stone Cold. This one says the WWE's live interview with Brian Pillman's widow. And that was like a week or so after Brian Pillman died that they got an interview with her. So that was, gosh, what else? I know I only watched about like 95% of it until they were talked about how all these scandals in the 2022 era. It was like crazy. I highly suggest it, but as the show, it was great. But if you've seen Dark Side of the Ring of all 3 seasons, there was a lot of recycled things that they used. I mean, it was good, but let's see, you got, and then they did the one where he went to the tan salon, and that he was trying to force himself on another woman. So that was another one. And they missed a few big ones. They should have done more of the ones they didn't really talk about on Dark Side of the Ring, like the Ring Boy scandal, sex scandals with Pat, like I said, with Pat Patterson and the others. And that was one of the bigger ones they should have done, because they didn't do that one. And obviously they only had a little time to compile everything together. Especially what was wild, this dropped, a few days ago? 9 Lives of Vince McMahon. That dropped. The very next day, we're getting reports that Vince McMahon wants to come back to the WWE. He feels that he took some bad advice about stepping down and resigning, that he could have survived this whole thing and just laid low. But, of course, when we get that report, then we get another Wall Street Journal report about more sex scandals. So, Vince, Vince likes to work, so it doesn't shock me that he wants to be back, and he's probably losing his mind that he's not getting a chance to edit the WWE as he wants, take control. He's seen Vince, no, he's seen Triple H running the show, and Stephanie and Nick Khan, and they're like, "Oh, I want to be back there." They don't want you back. They'll probably take your opinion, but they don't want you back. And we don't want you back either, Vince. I'm sorry. As a fan of I'm not even going to say a fan of the product. I haven't been a fan of the product at 15 years. I just watch it out of habit. But I highly suggest you go watch it. But like I said, if you've seen Dark Side of the Ring, you're going to see a lot of repeats. And they even acknowledge, they'll say Dark Side of the Ring, or this footage was from Dark Side of the Ring of this episode. So they heavily recycled a lot of the footage. So if you've seen the Dark Side of the Ring, you don't really need to watch this. They really didn't tell us anything new that we didn't already know. So it was a good thing to watch. It's really good for casual, because people like me, I know all about these scandals because I've been a fan since '97. So what is that, 25 years of watching WWE? So yeah, so I highly suggest you guys go watch it. So it just seems like 2022 has been a weird year, especially with the WWE. Think about it, what happened? Triple H was still recovering from his heart attack or heart issues. Stephanie steps down. The whole things, all the NDAs were coming out of nowhere, being leaked out, and Vince has to step down temporarily, but he still had creative control of the product. And then more information got out to the point where he had to step down. It was just every time he's trying to weasel himself back in, he gets another kick in the ass. So they even called Vince McMahon lazy. Like, he just had all the power went to his head. Obviously, he had the biggest ego, so he's like, I want all the women I want. So I'm not condoning it, but it doesn't shock me. I mean, the guy beating the government with the steroid scandal, I would even say the drug issue, but when Chris Benoit, the government was heavily cracking down. Not only on WWE, they were cracking down on TNA, but they were mainly cracking down on the WWE. So that's pretty much it. I highly suggest you guys go check it out. Go watch it on Vice website. You get three, like I said, you get 3 or 4 free passes, or if you want to use your TV service, you could, if you know your password, your username, you could unlock it and watch it for free without worrying about these free passes. So that's pretty much it. You guys have a good day, and I'll talk to you guys later. See ya. Bye.